Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing well. In this video, we move on to the input operations. So let us begin. Scanf was a pain. In Python, inputs are taken in by a simple input function. To take an input into X, let us see this statement. Open up your terminal and open Python 3 first. We type this statement, X is input. And then we give the input that we desire, say 5. You can check that the input has been taken by printing X 5. Now let's move on. We have a very neat statement that follows. What this statement does is that it gives the prompt for input and then accepts one, all in one statement. Unlike C, where you need a printf for prompt followed by a scanf for inputs. Savvy, right? Let us see how it works. We write it as X is input. The prompt that we want to give, say please enter X. We need to be a bit courteous, don't we? Please enter X. So suppose 6. And then you can see again that it worked by printing X, right? Let's move on now. Suppose we want to take integer inputs. Now, as you might recall, that Python always takes inputs in strings and even outputs in strings. So to input integers, you have to cast that string into an int. So let us see an example. X is int. You're typecasting what? You're typecasting the input, right? So the input say 8. And now if you see the type of X, you can see that it is an int, right? So earlier when you were outputting, you outputted the int to a string because Python outputs as string. And now when you are taking input, you convert the string to your desired type, in this case an input, because Python by default takes input as string. Moving on. What if you want many inputs? For taking multiple inputs in separate lines, just like C, you need multiple input statements. So, suppose you want to take two variables, X and Y, and assign them values 1 and 2 via user input. So you write X is int input 4, and then in the next you write Y is int input and say 7. So you can print X and Y to see that both of them did what it was supposed to do. Now let's move on to another case. Suppose you want to take inputs in one line separated by a comma or a space or whatever, as you might think different problem sets might have. Now Python is nice enough to give you an inbuilt function for this, unlike C. This function is called split. First let us see an example and then I'll break down the split function for you. Suppose you want to take the input in this format, 1 space 2 space 3. So you write X comma Y comma Z, and we input 3 variables because we are going to input 3 values eventually. So input function and then dot the split function. Now input 4 space 5 space 7 and you can print X, Y and Z to see that it worked, right? So let's talk about the split function. The split function takes in the argument to be a delimiter, and by default this delimiter is space. So if you do not supply any argument, the argument will be taken to be a space and it will break the input stream and add spaces and assign them to the variables that you have given here, right? Now suppose you want to, you'll understand this better now, that suppose you have to take the input as 2, 3, 5. Then you need to put the comma as the delimiter in the function. So here we put comma within single quotes, right? So now I input in this format 5, 6, 7. You can check that it worked by writing print X, Y, Z. So it took the values and then separated them by a comma from the input stream. You can try different delimiters, but I think comma and space and the new line are the most common. So yeah, that's all for this video. We looked at input functions in detail. We would look at them in further detail later on once we have covered loops, because some of the features require loops. Thank you for the overwhelming response to my first video, and I hope you found this one to be worthy of your time as well. I'd like to especially thank my friend Anish Bhobe, aka Kid Riga, who has collaborated with me for this video, and we plan to continue this series together. It would be great if any one of you would also like to join in. Just ping me or talk to me whenever you see me. Enjoy and have a great day.